Two chances for one win. Can Boston College do it and get themselves bowling? I think they can.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. Time to start talking bowl games. And I know I don't want to get ahead of myself, but on today's show, I'm going to explain why I think BC is going to be able to get a bowl with 2 games remaining. I'm also going to look at the key to stopping UNC and the name that we're going to be talking about all week long. I'll explain who that is and why he's going to be a killer if BC can't stop him. And finally, basketball has been kind of tough to watch. They're 2-1, but there's a real joy on this team, and I'm going to talk about who that is in our final segment. So let's kick this off. Boston College sits at 5-5. They have 2 more games to go, one against UNC and one against Pitt. Both teams they're facing are already bowl eligible. BC needs to win one of these games to make a bowl. They could technically lose both of them and by APR make it in. I'm not sure if Bill O'Brien would take that, but let's take that out of the equation, the APR argument here. Let's just get into, can Boston College win just one more game to make the bowl? I think they can. And I think both of these games are winnable games for BC. You have a game against UNC. If you look at who UNC has beaten, they've, the Paul Feinbaum joke, Paul, who have they played? They have not played anybody. And I think that is where their issues reign. They have played, they lost to Duke, they lost to Pitt, they lost to Georgia Tech. The teams they beat, they smoked Virginia, common opponent, sure. They smoked Florida State, who's even worse than when we played them. They have wins against Charlotte, NC Central. They snuck us 19-17 win against Minnesota, and they snuck by a bad Wake Forest team this last week. So really, UNC hasn't played anyone. And the big key to beating them is going to be running the ball. UNC is 41st in the country in rushing defense. But I think that's a paper tiger statistic, because if you dive deeper into it, first of all, I just mentioned that they played a whole bunch of garbage teams, right? They have not played very much in terms of anybody this year. But when they play a team that can actually run the football, I'm already looking for the statistics for it, they have struggled. First of all, they played against Georgia Tech. And when they played Georgia Tech, they let up 371 yards on the ground. That's good enough to get yourself fired. I can't believe that didn't happen. They let up 223 yards on the ground against James Madison and 2 rushing touchdowns. Sorry, against Georgia Tech, I should also mention they let up 5 rushing touchdowns in that game. Not good. They let up 185 yards against Duke and 139 yards, which isn't all that great, against Pitt. So the games that they've played against teams that can actually move the ball on the ground, UNC hasn't stopped anybody. And so there's no reason to believe that they can stop Kai Robichaux and Jordan McDonald and Trayshawn Ward. There should be a key there. And we'll talk about what the biggest key for them to stop is in the second segment. But I'm saying right now, when you're looking at can BC run on this team, because that's going to be a key, they can. They can run on this team. I'm not sold on UNC yet. I really am not. I think there's a chance they could beat them. That's key 1. 2, BC plays Pitt in the season finale at home. Now, Pitt was like the darling of college football going into the season. Into this last month of football. They are 7-3. They were 7-0 about 3 weeks ago, but they have started to fold. Common opponent, Pitt played SMU and got housed 48-25. Okay. They lost to Virginia 24-19, about the same that you did. And they played tough against Clemson, but they let up that awful Cade Klubnik touchdown at the end of that game that just basically put the dagger in their back. So is this Pitt team for real? Well, Eli Hostein, their quarterback, has missed the last game. So you don't have him. He should be back. It was a head injury. I can't imagine. He was questionable going into last week. I imagine he's going to be back soon. So they have one more game. They are playing against Louisville this week. So most likely they're going to be 7-4 going into 7-4 against BC. So pretend that BC cannot beat UNC. Can they beat Pitt? I think again, there's a chance that they could. Now Pitt is 30. They have 35 points per game, but this is who they beat in those 7 games. Kent State, worst team. What are they? 0-10. I don't think they've won a game this year. They're 0-10. Terrible. Cincinnati, they are 5-5. Okay. They beat Cincinnati. West Virginia, 5-5. They beat Youngstown State. They beat UNC. Cal, who's bad, and Syracuse. They trounced Syracuse. So I still think this team is beatable too. I think BC can beat this team. They're pretty stout against the run too. But they're a tough football team. That's the one thing. You play Pat Narduzzi, you're going to play a tough physical football team. So I think one of these games. I don't. If I was a fortune teller, I would probably guess more towards Pitt. But you know what? It's not out of the realm of possibility BC just goes 7-5. And if that's the case, that's a really good ending for a season that's been kind of crazy. Right? If you were to tell me at the beginning of the season against that schedule that you'd end the season with Thomas Castellanos not on your team anymore, that you were starting Grayson James, you beat FSU, you held your own against a very good SMU team, and you ended up 7-5, I would have said that's a raging success. You would basically almost double what your Vegas odds were for this season. That's a positive. Now, if they go 6-6, I still think that's positive because it's the first year of Bill O'Brien. He has none of his guys in here. These are all Halfley dudes. And I think he's done pretty successful, but you got to win one of these. That's going to really dictate how this season is viewed. Because if they go 5-7 and don't make a bowl, yeah, you can call that a disappointment. That's not what you were hoping for, and you didn't get there. They got to win one more. And they're both at home. Now, the game against Pitt is in that weird Thanksgiving day. I hate the Thanksgiving weekend because A, the students are gone, and B, it's just a weird weekend at BC. So they got to win one there. Can they do it? I think they can. Now, in our second segment, BC is facing UNC on Saturday at noon. And I'm going to go into what the Eagles are going to face and what the biggest challenge they're going to run into heading into that game. I'll tell you who that is and why it's going to be a challenge for BC in just a moment. Boston College fans, let's listen up. You need to download the Roy app. You've heard us talk about Roy this season and how they are revolutionizing the NIL industry. Roy allows you, the fan, to have a say in who gets the NIL money. And here's what I absolutely love about Roy. You get your money back if that player transfers. Roy is helping us keep our team intact, and it's actually good for the game long term. Hey, if you put money into Thomas Castellanos, I'm guessing you would get your money back. Now, after this weekend, my pick of the game is going to be Grayson James. I'm going to pick Grayson James as my player of the week. You can show your support for Grayson James by depositing a little appreciation onto that player's account. To do that, download the Roy app. You can see what the logo looks like if you're watching on YouTube, or go to joinroy.com. Now, let's spotlight that player. Grayson James had 2 touchdowns, throwing, 1 running in just a short week where Thomas Castellanos bailed on the team. So if you want to help out, every contribution counts. 10, 20 bucks. It all adds up, and it all helps our favorite players stay put. Join me and show some love for Grayson James. Download the Roy app or go to joinroy.com today. Use promo code LOCKEDON. Every athlete from every team is there. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Go to joinroy.com for full terms. Roy, support the players, change the game. Now, if you're like me, you love going to concerts, theater, shows, sporting events, you name it. You just, getting out of the house. It's so important. Now, if you want to get the best seats, you got to use Game Time. Game Time has this app feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. They filter out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of deals. They've got all-in pricing. You can toggle this feature showing the total upfront with no surprise fees at tickets at checkout. And the lowest price guaranteed, your Game Time will credit you up to 110% of the difference if you find it cheaper anywhere else. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. And if you want more, check out Locked On Tar Heels with Isaac Shade, who covers the Tar Heels. He's a great podcaster. Check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, we're going to get into a little bit about UNC here. Now, Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider will be on later this week to talk fully about what UNC is going to be for a challenge. But one name I need to make sure that you guys are all aware of. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing my due diligence as a podcaster, is Omarian Hampton. Omarian Hampton is an All-American All-American running back, excuse me. I almost called him a quarterback, who is second in the country right now in yards per game, only behind Ashton Gianti of Boise State, who is on his way to possibly winning the Heisman Trophy. He has 14 touchdowns. He's averaging 5.73 yards per carry. And he is incredible. He's second in he's right now second in the country in yards. He's a big physical back. This is a guy that is going to be causing problems for BC. He's a big kid, and BC has had some issues against the run that I think worry me when you play against a guy that's as elite as Omarian Hampton. You just played Rashard Smith, who for SMU, who had about 100 yards. Most of those came on that run at the end of the first half, but you've had some other running backs that have made you look foolish. Biggest one, of course, is Byshell Tootin of Virginia Tech, who ran for 244 yards against you, or 200 something plus yards against you just a couple weeks ago. So when you see a guy like that, Tootin's good. Omarian Hampton is next level. So BC is going to have their best game, especially against the run, because you're going to play against a quarterback in Jacoby Criswell, who is good. I don't think he's great. He is thrown for 2,000 yards so far, which isn't bad through 9 games, but 12 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. But that's not the big issue here when you're playing defense. It's going to be against Hampton. Like, if he starts grinding you out, this defense is thin as it is with some of these injuries. That could really cause some headaches in this game. We don't know the updates on injuries to Cam Arnold. That's going to be one to watch for, and some of the secondary. But Arnold, I think, is a big one. If they could get Cam Arnold back for this game, that would be huge. No offense to Joe Marinaro, but having your starting middle linebacker, your Mike linebacker against an offense like this is going to be important. This UNC offense is not as prolific as some of the Drake May offenses you saw a couple of years ago, but Hampton is dangerous, and he's going to be a problem for BC if they don't get, themselves together and make tackles quick, because he can do a lot. And Mitch has some really good comparisons of what some NFL level running backs this guy's compared to. So this could be the matchup of the game for BC. You slow him down. Say you hold him to 120, 130 yards, you're going to be okay. But if he rips off 170, 100 to 200 yards, you're in big trouble. Mac Brown called this it's going to be a bloody, physical game. And I think that's true because I think BC is going to be able to run on their defense as well. So it's going to be which team can make a stop here, which team can, slow down the other running back enough so that you can get off the field and get your offense going. I think that is going to be the biggest factor in this game. But so Omarian Hampton, that's the name you're going to want to watch for. That's the name of a guy, hopefully, that's not going to give Boston College some nightmares because he's that guy. He could be ACC Player of the Year. He's that good. So watch out for this guy because if BC struggles against the run, it's going to be Hampton you're going to hear a lot of. He ran for 244 yards against Wake Forest last week and basically put them away himself. So it could happen again. But if BC can slow him down, that could be a real big key for a win here. So that's going to be something I think is going to be the major factor in this game. Now, in our final segment, I want to talk a little basketball. We haven't talked basketball in a while. We'll get into one player that I've been really having a lot of fun watching, and I'll explain who that is in just a moment. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out it's really that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There you'll get to see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your own phone number along with all your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and get your new 3-month premium plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3 months plan only. Speeds slower above 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fee, and restrictions. See Mint Mobile for details. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. And when you're done with this podcast, let me tell you about Locked On Celtics. Celtics have been kind of up and down, and John Corrales is the king of podcasting about the Celtics. Check out Locked On Celtics on YouTube or where you get your podcasts. Now, Boston College basketball won their second game of the year last Friday in a thriller against Temple and in Chestnut Hill. I think it was 74-71. I don't have the score right in front of me. But the key to that game was not the guard play. The key to that game was not Chad Venning, the center. The key to that game was Elijah or Eli Strong, who is the heart and soul of this team. Eli Strong, to me, is the throwback, the quintessential throwback Boston College basketball player. You look at him, he's not the most physically imposing guy. I don't want to say he's doughy because he's way more jacked than I. I mean, look at me. I'm not that big. But he's not like, some of those, the forwards that are built like concrete. You know what I mean? He has a gregarious attitude towards him, but that's great, that he doesn't look and does that part, but he plays the part that you want. He's a gritty, energetic winner. And that is what Eli Strong is. He scored 25 points against Temple. He was the heart and soul of that win. He had the steal at the very end of the game. Not the steal, the offensive foul that he took. He had big points when they needed it. This guy is a star, and he doesn't get the recognition that many guys will get, but he deserves it. And he's going to be a name you're going to be talking about all year long because I thought BC was going to lose that game against Temple, and he basically willed them to win it. I was very impressed with his play. And he's a guy to cheer for. Just like watch him. It's like just exuding effort and joy when he's making when he's playing out there. And it's hard to not like get excited watching him play because he's that kind of guy. He's like, BC is right now is built on that Earl Grant's like gritty, not pretty philosophy that he brought up. I think Elijah Strong is like the poster boy for that. Like everything about him is not gritty or not pretty, but real gritty. And he can be your new face of this team. Like you got like as I said at the beginning of this year, like you didn't know what this team was going to be like. And that first loss that they had against VCU was horrifying because it looked like there was nothing there. There was no identity. They just looked lost and helpless. But I saw something with Strong against Temple. Now I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit about how excited I am about this team because Temple's bad. They're not a good team. And so the fact that they at home barely beat them um, is not super encouraging because especially since the offense was going crazy at the beginning and then all of a sudden it went right. Like Earl Grant basically was like, "Whoa, slow down. Let's get this offense back to grinding to a halt again." And that's how like the second half of that game went. But still, Strong is, I think, a real player there. So BC plays against. They play tomorrow against Loyola, Maryland, at home. We're now into those games where I start to have a heart attack because I'm worried that they're going to, have the epitome of brutality pay game loss where they, pay a team to come in and they lose to them. Maine, Holy Cross, UMass Lowell, Hartford, you name it, BC's had them in the last couple of years, right? This is another one. Loyola could be a tough, Loyola's not good, but BC sometimes just gets caught napping, and this is going to be a big one for them to win. Now, the last thing I want to bring up because I haven't talked about them enough, and I want to shout out. I want to shout out someone who is listening to this podcast who said, "AJ, talk more about hockey." Well, hockey had a miserable game against UConn on Friday last week. They went down 3-0 at a blink of with a snap of a finger. And not only did they go down, they lost their starting goalie, Jacob Fowler, not just for that game, but this upcoming game on Tuesday against Providence, because he threw a punch after his third goalie let up. He just got frustrated and hauled off and threw a punch at one of the players. Completely out of control, out of character. And BC came back in that game, but ended up losing. I believe it was 5-4. It did not look good. It was a disappointing loss, and it pushed BC down the rankings. Now BC is third in the country. They fell behind Michigan State, who BC beat, and Denver. So they got a big one against Providence. Is always good. They're always a tough, grinding hockey team. They're going to play them again on Tuesday. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. And that's going to wrap things up. Later this week, I will be doing a crossover episode with Locked On Tar Heels. I will talk with Isaac about this upcoming game. On Friday, we'll have Mitch on to talk about the previews and predictions and everything else in between. Follow along with me on Twitter at AJBlack247 and check out my work at Eagle Insider for any written stuff that you want to check out. And before you leave, hit that like and subscribe button wherever you get this podcast. And if you're on YouTube, it does help us a ton if you do that. Thank you so much for following along. This is AJ Black, and this is Locked On Boston College, your team every day.